G'day, my name's Scott Lillis, mechanic for Michael Mosman on the Rockstar Husqvarna team. Today we're going to step by step with how to change a tyre. To change a tyre, first you're going to need a few tools, and this is what we're going to need to do. Okay, so first things, tyre irons, tyre levers, tyre spoons, depending on what country you come from, is what they're called. We've got my ratchet 10mm with this actual wheel. It has a 10mm nut for the rim lock, and I like to use that. Most rim locks are either a 12 or a 13 or a 10. A valve core removal tool. These come in many different shapes and sizes. This is just your sort of basic run-of-the-mill one. Our bead buddy. As you can see, it'll slide in the rim, hooks onto the spokes. The tyre won't come off that way. A tyre pressure gauge. Something that I use every single day. I really can't stress enough, you guys need to invest in a decent tyre pressure gauge. Something that gets overlooked quite a lot, but I really think it's quite important. And the good old Windex. Pretty much get that anyway, really. It's perfect, it dries up, it doesn't leave its mark, it's safe on wheels and rubbers and stuff like that. So first step, we're going to get the air out of the tyre. It's a simple process. We just remove the valve cap with my valve core removal tool. We're going to just place it inside the actual valve and spin away. Okay, be careful, there's going to be a lot of pressure with the air coming out, so you might actually lose the actual valve core. So if you just take your time, it'll come out slowly. You'll stay attached, and away you go. From there, remove the nut. And that's all the air and everything out. Next step, we're going to grab our ratchet wrench, or just a normal wrench. We're going to take our rim lock out. I like to use a ratchet wrench just because it makes stuff a little bit easier. But you can use any type of, usually they're a 10 or a 12. Also I like to do is when you got the nut almost all the way out, push the actual rim lock in and it'll break free from the tyre. It'll make your life a little bit easier when we get going on. Okay, from there we need to break the bead. Now breaking the bead is basically we've got to push the tyre down so it gets off the seat of the rim so we can then remove the tyre. So most of the times with motocross tyres you can just use your hands, but when they get a little bit stiff and a little bit old, we can use their tyre irons. Now what you want to do is put the tyre iron in and then just push down. Basically, you just work your way around the tyre. Once you get a couple in, then you can usually just push it down with your hand. Okay, now it's time to remove the tyre. First things first, always start on the disc side, not the sprocket side. If you do happen to slip a tyre iron, the last thing you want to do is punch a sprocket. Okay, so we'll flip the tyre over. Make sure the bead is broken on this side as well. Okay, now bead's broken all the way around. And there's a rule of thumb, always start at the valve, finish at the valve. Okay, now when you have a rim lock, I tend to start just on the outside of the rim lock. Usually the rim locks are right beside the valve anyway, with most motocross tyres, but every now and then you'll get one on the opposite side. I tend to like to start usually just beside the valve or just past the rim lock. So again, we'll grab our spoons. Now the trick to this is not try and take too big a bites. If you do lots of little bites, it becomes a lot easier and it'll come off nice and smooth. So slide your tyre iron in. Okay, then get your second iron. about 2 inches apart, and that should be pretty good. So now this comes a little bit physical, but if you use this technique, it's not too hard. So make sure the bead is fully broken on the other side. Got the tyre. Now, without using too much force, but mainly just using your body weight, and then sliding it behind the disc, it becomes quite easy. Okay, then grab your first spoon. It should just slide out like that. And then you can continue that process just around, usually at like 2-inch intervals. Now again, just like breaking the bead, once you get 1 or 2 like lifts over, the tie becomes quite easy to come off. Okay, once you're off all the way around, let's flip the tyre. We can do the same thing to this side. There's lots of different techniques, but I find this way is the best way to be able to get the tyre off without scratching the rim or doing any damage to yourself. Yeah, this is not more so much about my brute strength, but just more about technique and just using your body weight. Again, like the other side, once you get 1 or 2 in, it becomes quite easy then. Okay, once you're all the way around, you'll notice the tyre. What I usually like to start at, so start at the rim lock, then push the whole tyre, push the valve in, whole tyre down. Like that, and it's as simple as pulling the rim out. Now is a good time to check the rim for any kind of extruding spokes. Make sure the rim tape's all intact, and just like any nicks or anything like that. It's also a good time to give it a clean. Sometimes after a while, especially if you ride in a lot of mud or something like that, and sand, dirt will actually, there's quite a lot of dirt that'll collect up in here. So it's always good to just pull your rim tape off, give it a good clean, give it a scrub, then dry it out before you put a new tyre on or rim. So I like to make you don't have to study it, but just make sure there's no big cracks or anything like that, or any of the spokes that are protruding through, or anything broken or anything like that. Or what can happen is you guys will actually end up getting a frozen spoke, or worst case scenario, a broken spoke. If you watch this video here, I can walk you through just how to replace a spoke. It's nice, quick and easy, but this is the perfect opportunity to do any kind of like spoke maintenance or anything like that while you have the tyre off. Okay, to clean, I like to use either a soap, water soap combine, or just a bit of Windex. Windex is good because it doesn't leave any residue, and it also will dry up. So when we are beating the tyre back on, the tyre won't slip on the rim. A lot of people, you need to kind of stay away from anything like any of the lubes like WD-40 or something like that, just because that will leave like a slippery residue, and then you are going to get into problems later on with the tyre slipping and tearing valves. Okay, cool. Now that we have our tyre ready to be put on, a little trick I like to do is especially when the tyres come from a store or something like that, they're usually been in storage for quite a while. So they tend to become a little bit hard. To make it better for yourself and a little bit easier for yourself, I like to leave mine out in the sun while you take the tyre off. And then by the time you're ready to put the tyre back on, she's nice and loose and ready to jump back on. First things first, make sure the tyre is or isn't directional. If you look around the tyre, around the side, you will notice there are a lot of markings and stuff like that in terms of size and stuff like that. And many times there'll be a directional arrow. Basically, you just want that arrow going the way the wheel's going to go. So check both sides, because sometimes they're only on one side. Lucky for us today, we don't have a directional tyre, so we can't mess that one up. But with this tyre, I'm just basically spinning it. I want to have the fresh edge to the front to give us a nice fresh edge. Okay, so what I like to use, just on the bead, we find which direction I want the tyre to go on. I get a little Windex, spray that quite generously around the bead, and run your fingers around it. I grab my rim lock, place my rim lock in the hole, and then just put 1 to 2 turns on the nut so she's free, but can come out quite a ways. I grab my tyre with the bead that we just lubed up. Then I want to hook it, the bottom of the bead, underneath the rim lock, pull that tyre up and over like that. Okay, then I want to push what I can with my hands. I'm going to grab my spoons again, and again, using small bites, flipping the tyre over. Okay, now our tyre's on. He's good. The rim lock, the tyre is over the top of the rim lock, and we're ready for our tube. Okay, the biggest and probably the most common problem with people changing tyres is pinch tubes. Now, we all have done it. Even the best in the biz have done it. Even if they told you they didn't, they're lying, because everybody's pinched a tube one way or another. Okay, so a good habit to get into, and basically it's good for just a good habit to get into for your tubes for their longevity. I just get a regular trash bag. I chuck my tube in the trash bag. Now with some baby powder, just regular household baby powder. I fill it up, not obviously all the way, but just a good couple of good squirts. This is a good way of doing it. Now what the baby powder does is when the tyre lever goes into the tyre, rather than it grabbing and gripping on the tube itself, it'll just fold over it. Also, baby powder is really good for if you do ride sort of a lot of off-road at higher speeds. Sometimes the heat in the tyre will get that hot that the tube itself will melt, and this won't completely stop it, but it does delay it and will prevent most like 9 times out of 10 it'll be your best sort of bet for that. So yeah. So once you get on that, you should have a nice ghost white tube. make sure get all the excess off. If you want to make a mess, try and keep it all in the bag. The best thing about this is too, once you get all that done, fold it up, put it in the drawer, put it in a box or whatever, and then you can do it for your next one. This can be reused 100 times. Okay. Okay, now we're going to get the tube in the tire. First things first, you want to find where the valve hole is. I like to start with it opposite of me. I also then like to get my valve stem nut. Just sit it in the well here so you can't lose it, because you're going to want that nice and handy. Want to lift the tire up, stick your hands in, a little bit of finagling, and it should come straight through. Place the nut on the end of the valve. Again, like the rim lock, only put a couple of threads on it. Okay, now we're going to start working our way around the tire with the tube until it's all the way in. Now, take special note of the tube over the rim lock. Okay, it should be pretty easy to stick your hands in there and just make sure that the actual tube is over the top of the rim lock and it's not pinched in between the actual rim and the rim lock itself, because that's an easy way to pinch a tube. Okay, all right. Dust yourself off a little bit, made quite a mess, but it's all good. Okay, grab my Windex or your soap solution or something like that. Spray around the rim, spray around the tire, the bead of the tire, run it around with your fingers. Make sure she's all lubed up. Okay, Bead Buddy. This is a great little tool. A few different companies make it. They're quite easy to find. What I like to do, again, start at the rim lock, just past the rim lock. Levers in. Put your Bead Buddy in. She slides in. And basically what the Bead Buddy does is when you go around and around and around, it will stop the tire from peeling up and chasing yourself. It makes it a hell of a lot easier. Again, you don't necessarily need it, but it will make your job a lot easier. Okay, so like taking the tire off, we want to take small bites. And just work our way around. Okay, it's going to be quite easy the first few. It's the last one that's usually the hardest. Okay, when you get about halfway, just take note and make sure the bead is still over the end and it's not sitting on top of the rim. It's going to make your job a little bit easier when we get to the hard part. Again, small bites, especially when the tire starts to get hard to pull over. Okay, another thing to notice is when I'm pulling out the levers, I'm going away from the rim. I'm not trying to pull it out of the way, I'm pulling it with the way I'm going. It's a good habit to get in there because again, that's going to stop you from grabbing that tube like there. Okay, so now we got it all the way to the rim lock. We're going to make sure the rim lock's pushed all the way in as far as we can. And then we're just going to push down on the tire and she should pop straight back in. There we go. And then the rim's on. Okay, so now the tire is on, ready to rock and roll. She's ready for air. Now we grab our valve core. Now before we put our valve core in, there's a little seal that's around the middle of the core. Just quickly look over it with your eyes. Make sure you don't see any nicks or any damage to it. Okay, place it in our valve core tool, into the valve, and away we go. Tight until it's snug. Now you don't need to crank on it, but make sure it's tight. Okay, now the moment of truth. See how good of a tyre changer I am. Okay, you want to place air in it all the way until you see both sides bead. Okay, so if you look, make sure both sides are bed on the rim. Okay, the rim lock has come out, and yeah, way to go. No pinch tube this time. All right, next little tip, with your finger, just lick the top of your finger and just go over the top of the valve. Make sure there's no air coming out and we don't have a leaky valve. Okay. Now we're going to tighten down our rim lock. Our rim lock is something you need to check all the time as well. It should be part of your nut and bolt check after every time you ride, because they do come loose, and it is an easy way to make sure you're not going to spin a valve. Okay. Now another common thing that people forget to do is they blow their tyre up and then they chuck it in the bike, and then they're ready to rock and roll. They get to the track and they got 65 PSI in the tyre. So what I like to do is, before it's even on the bike, let's set the pressure. Now, if you're going to be leaving it overnight, or you're about to, it's going to be stay a couple of days, what I like to do is just leave a couple of extra PSI in it. And then that way, if it does settle overnight or something like that, you come to check the next morning, you don't have to pump it up, you can just let a couple of PSI in and it's ready to rock and roll. Now your tyre pressure will depend on what tyre, what track, what country. It depends on a lot of different things. A good rule of thumb though, if you start around 13, you're pretty solid. Okay, we're at 13. Okay, then we're going to place our valve cap on, and then the actual valve stem nut, we're not going to tighten that down to the rim. Okay, what I like to do, I like to tighten it hard up against the valve cap. So then if you do have if by chance the tyre does slip on the rim while you're riding, you're not going to pull your valve core completely out of the tube. Okay, it's a good little trick to get in the habit of. You can do that with your front and your rear tyres. But yeah, right there, that's pretty much it. We didn't pinch a tyre, we didn't pinch a tube, sorry, and yeah, we're ready to go riding. Thank you.